Committee on Education, Public Library, and Women's Affairs is conducting a public hearing for some confirmations and also for a bill. It is April 1st, 2014, 5:30 p.m. I would like to thank, of course, my colleagues for joining me, and to my immediate left is the Vice Chair of the Education Committee, and to her left is Senator Tony Adams. Thank you for joining me. We're here this afternoon to hear, of course, the nomination or the appointment of Mr. Kenneth P. Chargleff as a member to the Guam Education Board as the retired school administrator representative, the appointment of Ms. Charlene D. Concepcion, member of the Guam Education Board parent representative, the appointment of Gina Y. Ramos, member of the Guam Community College Board of Trustees, and we have Bill number 266-32. It's an act to add a new section 849.7 of Chapter 8 of Title I Guam Code Annotated relative to the renaming of the Tijan Parkway to Chalan Magahaga. Public notices were transmitted on March 25th, 29th, and the 30th to the media. Testimonies, of course, will be received today. So if you provide any testimonies, please make sure you identify yourself, who you represent, and if you are in favor or not of either the nominees or a bill. Or you can hand deliver them to the Speaker's office, the mailbox room, or the reproduction room at the main legislature building. Or you can email it to fbtorres@judy1pat.com, or you can fax it to our office at 472-3589 for any of the nominees and, of course, the bill. So for this afternoon, the first nominee that I've named already is Mr. Kenneth P. Chargleff. And those who've signed up to testify, I have 4 chairs, so I'm going to do this 4 at a time. I'd like to ask Beverly San Augustine to please come forward, Ray S. Tapasnia, Jim Rages, and Mr. Dexter Fulo. Now, these mics are fairly powerful mics. So what you need to do when you're ready to speak is that you press the button in the front of the red light comes on. Then it is on. We can't have both of them on at the same time, and same with us. We'll turn off ours, otherwise we'll get some feedback. Please don't pull it too close to you, otherwise it'll be muffled and we won't be able to hear you clearly. And we want to make sure, because this public hearing and this confirmation hearing is being recorded so that the committee can later then put together a committee report with a recommendation from the committee. I'd like to also thank the COR, the Committee on Rules Chairman, Senator Rory Respicio, for joining us this late afternoon, early evening. So we'll go ahead and start then with the first individual who would like to testify, and we'll start with the lady in front, Ms. Beverly San Augustine, and then we'll work our way down.
Good afternoon, honorable senators. My name is Beverly San Augustine. It is a privilege to come before you to endorse the nomination of Mr. Kenneth Chargleff as a member of the Board of Education. As an educator for about 36 years, I had the privilege to work with Mr. Chargleff as a teacher, school administrator, supervisor, and a colleague in the Guam Department of Education. I consider Mr. Chargleff as a mentor who is a visionary leader and a lifelong learner. He actively engages with current educational research as he interacts and encourages educators to ensure the success of all students. He's one of the few whom I've met in my career that is well informed of education trends, government, and school policies. I was always amazed with his passion for education and enthusiasm. He was always challenging teachers to actively engage in school communities and events, but most especially in becoming effective teachers. As a former teacher, I remember Mr. Chargolov demonstrating the attributes of an effective school leader. He was always passionate and committed as an educator who promoted new ideas to better address the needs of all stakeholders. He was innovative and proactive in his newly researched ideas to address student achievement and teacher quality. He would initiate creative ideas or programs to address instructional needs, even though everyone were not too receptive to such changes. He would demonstrate that changes were necessary in order to improve successfully as a school. Mr. Chargolov would always elicit active participation from teachers in order to improve successfully as a school. Mr. Chargolov basically promoted professional development and effective teacher quality and effective teacher leadership. Thus, with his encouragement, I was selected as the 2001 Guam Teacher of the Year. As a school administrator, Mr. Chargolov would find the strengths within people and encourage them to become proactive in the endeavors of improving as a school. I am a good example of his encouragement of becoming a teacher leader and then a school administrator. He promoted the professional development of leaders in order to better address the needs of our schools. Mr. Chargolov would always personalize and be available for professional guidance no matter how challenged his schedule was for the day or week. He is always diligent as he works beyond the amount of time given in a day. He is truly a passionate and committed educator who accepts challenges with much vigor and resilience. With Mr. Chargolov's accomplishments as an educator, I am confident that if he is selected as a member of the Board of Education, he will continue to promote and encourage the need to improve schools and the success of all school stakeholders. In closing, I humbly request that you support and consider Mr. Chargolov's nomination for the Board of Education. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much, Ms. Augustine. Mr. Ray S. Tapasnia.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Speaker, Senators Yamashita, Senator Atta, and Senator Respicio. For the record, my name is Ray Sanchez de Posna, and I currently serve as Special Assistant to Governor Calvo. I am here to provide testimony in support of Mr. Kenneth P. Chargolov, both in my personal capacity and in my capacity as senior staff to the governor. I've known Ken for approximately 15 years now, as he is my brother-in-law. My wife and his wife are sisters. And I may be the only one here not from DOE, so, nope, okay. In all the years that I've known Ken, I can attest that he is a man of principle, a family man, one who has a wealth of knowledge relative to the Guam Department of Education, and someone who exhibits tremendous passion when it comes to matters pertaining to our public school system. I've always commented that Ken is obsessed with being an educator, as he did this for 33 years. 36 years, actually, if you count his early days of serving as a substitute teacher. And this obsession has carried over even after he retired from leading JFK High, as evident by his involvement in the creation of the Cortex Scholarship Program and his continued mentoring of current DOE school administrators. While I had nothing to do with recommending Mr. Chargolov's appointment to the Education Board, I was elated when I heard the news, as I believe that Governor Calvo made a prudent decision. I am confident that Ken Chargolov will serve in the best interests of our school children, as he has done so for over 36 years. And I am thankful to Governor Calvo for recognizing the importance of appointing a candidate that knows the Department of Education from top to bottom. It sure helps when formulating policy that you understand the entire operations, particularly after you have served in various capacities to include teaching, being a school principal, an associate superintendent, and on occasion, an acting superintendent. I have nothing but admiration for anyone who has given nearly his entire professional career to educating our youth and is still willing to accept this appointment to serve for another few years and not get paid to do this. Senators, I humbly request for you to confirm Mr. Kenneth P. Chargolov to the Guam Education Board. There's no doubt in my mind that Ken will work towards raising the bar at DOE and work closely with DOE management, the 32nd Guam Legislature, and Governor Calvo's administration to better our public school system. Thank you, and Sedus Mas.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tabasnik. Mr. Jim Regis.
Good evening, Madam Speaker Wonpat, Senator Respicio, Senator Yamashita, and Senator Adam. My name is Jim Regis, and I thank you for this opportunity to speak on behalf and in support of the Governor's appointment of Mr. Kenneth P. Chargleff to the Guam Education Board as a retired educator. I have known Mr. Chargleff on both a professional and personal level for a very long time. As a professional, he's a proven leader, both at the district level as the last Associate Superintendent of Secondary Schools and at the school level as a school principal. I can actually take us all the way back through his career as an educator. I know him that well, but I may be speaking for a while. Nonetheless, one of his last commitments prior to his retirement was serving with several other school administrators on the Professional Development Design Team, which provided a focus for professional development within the department for both administrators and teachers. Since Mr. Chargleff's retirement in 2012, he did not take a backseat to education. As a matter of fact, he immediately gave back to the department. He worked closely with several business owners to secure scholarships for our DOE graduates for students in need of financial assistance. He worked closely with several school principals and provided guidance and assistance whenever he was consulted. Even at personal gatherings, education was still his focus of conversation, as he spent much time talking about education, current practices within our department, and of course throughout the nation. I want to believe that these simple examples of his character are indicative of his ability to serve as a viable Guam Education Board member, especially filling the seat reserved for that of a retired educator. Again, I thank you for this opportunity, and Mr. Chargleff, I wish you all the best in this process. Thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Fulo.
Good afternoon, Madam Speaker, Senator Respicio, Senator Yamashita, Senator Adam. My name is Dexter Fulo, and I'm an educator at Beneventi Middle School. I've been an administrator for about 10 years now with some background at BMS and Antoine Middle School. And both seem to have semblance of Mr. Chargleff's leadership that I'll explain in a second. I've known Mr. Chargleff when I first became an assistant principal in 2004, serving under his leadership as associate deputy superintendent of secondary schools. I then had the opportunity to work with him as a colleague from 2010 to 2013 as a principal. During that time, Mr. Chargleff was a member of our design team, and we used his guidance and advice in trying to help move the department forward and making sure student achievement has improved. I come forward before you to testify in favor of his appointment specifically for two reasons. Number one, to act as a liaison between the educators and the board, and number two, to ensure that we initiate and support policies that practice the implementation of the Common Core, a DOE. Currently, our school, the education department right now is at a very exciting moment with the Common Core. But unlike prior implementation of the standards, the district office has done an exceptional job of making sure that the teachers will use these trainings that Joe has been providing for us. And we all know that the most effective trainings are the ones that make their way into the classroom. If it doesn't happen in the classroom, it will not work very effectively. We know that as educators that the Common Core will succeed first and foremost on the instructional shift that's going to be required in the classroom. We can't expect higher standards if we teach the same way. We definitely have to make that little shift. And when we're doing that as a department, there's going to be a whole change going on. There's going to be a bunch of people that are going to be used to doing things they normally don't do, right? Therefore, it's very critical at this point that the leaders understand the change process in order for this to succeed. What Mr. Chargaloff excels in is the understanding between the structural change and the cultural change. In order for us to succeed and ensure all our students learn, we not only have to change the department structurally, meaning provide more time and put a little bit more funding and more money and making the facilities nicer, but also change it culturally, changing the mindsets of our educators, of our parents, of our students. I think that's where Mr. Chargaloff excels in. The difference between knowing the structural change and cultural change may seem very minute as a small thing to non-educators, but I think to all the educators, Senator Juan Pat and Senator Yamashita, you know that it makes all the difference on the way we think and the way we feel about our students. You all know that there are teachers out there that we would send any of our students to, knowing full well that by the time they leave, they're going to be a little bit better, right? And unfortunately, at DOE, they're in every schools, but unfortunately, in the past, our practices was that is the exception to the rule. It's not the norm. What we need to do is have a cultural shift where that is the expectations for all teachers and all students so that they will succeed. I believe Mr. Chargaloff can accomplish that under his leadership. Whether you love him, you hate him, he's a controversial figure. One cannot deny his ability as a leader, right? He has challenged cultural values and the mores of the school to ensure student learning has always succeeded. No matter what school you go to, look at the data, it speaks for themselves. Student learning has improved. And that's a result of the cultural change that he has exhibited under his leadership. A lot of times I've engaged in challenging and sometimes realistically painful conversations about my school with Mr. Chargaloff. He tells me, we have a lot of fierce conversations, and he tells me what I'm good at as well as areas that need to be improved. We cannot just keep pretending that things are great when they're not. As an educator, we have to realize that we do have weaknesses, and we can improve and we can make ourselves better. I believe that that's what Mr. Chargaloff will bring to the board. He will give us a reality of what the schools are, what they're good in, all their strengths, and also what needs to be improved. And I believe that's what's needed. Mr. Chargaloff has a credibility from our colleagues because he knows and understands the cultures of the school. He speaks from logic, common sense. Like Bev said, he speaks from best research on what we know works. He has proven himself, and I ask and I believe that he can continue to prove himself and help the department move forward by appointing him as a member of the Guam Educational Board. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this first set of individuals who have testified. Does anyone have any comments? Senator Espicio.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I want to thank the panel for the testimony tonight. Before the speaker dismisses you, I just want to generate some discussion as to what your perspective is as to what this representative will provide. Certainly no one is challenging the credentials of anyone that's been appointed, but this slot calls for a member of the Guam Education Board to be retired school administrator representative. And over the years of the Guam Education Policy Board, we saw it go from an appointed to elected, back to appointed, then again back to an elected board, and then now to a hybrid board, where all of these slots are specific to these appointees. And but the idea has always been is to have a board that would represent the stakeholders of the entire education system. And so if this individual is appointed to is he appointed to serve the administrators on the board from their perspective, or is he the governor's representative to the board to give the governor feedback on what the administrators need from the Department of Education? I just want to ask, how do you think this is to be approached? Is he the administration? Is he the administrators? Is he going to represent your interest on the board, or is he going to provide a perspective for the governor's interest when it comes to education?
I would go ahead and attempt to give you my response to that, sir. Basically, as we all have related, Mr. Charglov's passion as an educator represents all the stakeholders. And I think based on his background, he always has the child in mind. All right, and so I would think he would be the balance as far as equity purposes are concerned, being a social studies instructor. He always has that goal in mind for student achievement. And he is diplomatic as much as he can, but we remind him to best work with the various type of stakeholders. So to respond candidly with you, it's basically, I feel that he is able to represent the stakeholders, most especially the goal in mind are the students.
I can speak as a special assistant to Governor Calvo. I am fairly confident. I'm confident that Governor Calvo didn't appoint Mr. Chargala to sit on the board to serve as a puppet.
I'm not suggesting that.
Okay, well, I apologize, but really it was his background, his expertise. There was a vetting process, and there were a number of candidates that were considered, and of course the final decision was to appoint Mr. Chargaloff, and again, just primarily based on his background.
Did this vetting process include a survey of the administrators? Were you consulted, given recommendations, any of you, with respect to how the administrators might receive this kind of appointment? Did the vetting process include surveying the school administrators to see who they would like to see represent, this perspective?
Well, I'm not privy to the specifics of the vetting process. That would be the Special Assistant for Education, Vince Leon Guerrero.
Okay. Did you want to say anything?
And honestly and frankly speaking, I don't think he would even try to put administrators before teachers or even before children, to say the least. He was my former supervisor, and he hasn't held back any blows, any punches in putting me in my place, but of course providing guidance along the way. So he has always put in mind, first and foremost, children. Regardless of what I think, regardless of what teachers believe, if it doesn't benefit our children, is it even worth considering? And that's what I know about Mr. Chargleff and how he has always put his educational beliefs and values to the test and at the forefront.
Yes, sir. It's we did not go through any process, just for information. But in terms of who he's working for, I can sincerely say it's for the kids. Every time we have our discussion, it's always about the kids. It's never about the adults. It's never about us. It's making sure that we meet our mission in making all our students succeed. And if we don't, a critical reflection of what we need to do to improve it.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm just trying to generate some discussion at the beginning of this confirmation hearing, because we know that those who ran for the Board of Education in their elected capacity, they certainly bring with them their individual passions and what they'd like to see in support of the system and the leadership at the Department of Education. We're going to hear from the parent representative, and I'm very interested to see if the PTA organizations throughout the schools were at least consulted as to who they would like to see their parent advocate on the board. I think that the teachers and the administrators have to have an advocate on the board, because there are issues affecting teachers and administrators, all of whom have that same goal of wanting to make sure that it's about the children. And so I don't want to misrepresent myself when I ask who this nominee would be beholding to, whether it would, and if this nominee certainly is qualified because of his perspective from being a retired administrator. I just want to know, Madam Speaker, how come the administrators weren't consulted? And I'm going to hear from the parent representative who's nominated, how come the PTAs weren't consulted, and who they like to see represent those interests on the board. So I thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. It's wonderful to see you all. I really appreciate you making the time to come forward and to share your perspectives of Ken. Takes me back, and we do certainly appreciate all that you continue to do. And I think you're right. You know, Kenny continues to give in different ways as a dad, and then certainly as a community leader. So, thank you.
I want to thank the four of you, and later on, maybe if anyone else should have any other questions, we may call you right back up. Okay, thank you. So the next individuals I'd like to call up are Miss Lourdes Nicholas, Mr. Ada, Peter Ada, Elizabeth Diego, Dr. Cruz. Okay, I have enough seats for four. Okay. All right, Ms. Nicholas, we'll start with you. Oh, and before, I'm sorry. If any one of you have written testimonies, can you please provide that, give copies to our staff, or if it's your only copy, we can Xerox it, because we would attach that to the committee report. Otherwise, we'll have to transcribe everything that you've said. So like Mr. Frulo, you did, oh, you have it, thank you. Okay, Lou.
Wampat, Senator Respicio, Senator Yamashita, and Senator Ada. Sizus Masi for giving us your time to testify on behalf of Mr. Ken Chargla. In 1979, I met this young, vibrant, energetic, enthusiastic young man ready to take over my classes at Aguila Johnson Junior High School. It was then that I was being promoted to the assistant principal position. In 1989, he joined the ranks of principals. We served in many different committees. Oftentimes, we were asked or appointed to serve on those committees, not because we didn't want to volunteer. There's just so much work to do at the school, but we willingly gave up our time to serve whenever we were needed by the superintendent of education. In 1990, he was promoted to acting associate superintendent secondary and was made permanent in 2001. He actually became, we were just so happy that he became our buffer to the director of education or the superintendent. And it was at this time where I actually witnessed his passion to be the leader of leaders. He demanded principals to perform to the highest level of the standards of school leadership. And I remembered those 3-inch binders that I had to fill with evidence, because eventually the information and the data that I collected translated into my performance evaluation. I never complained about doing that. It just took a lot of time, but we lived up to that kind of expectation. During his tenure as an associate superintendent secondary, I oftentimes had to call him either late at night or the early wee mornings because some school matters needed his attention and his help. And that was the line of protocol that we were expected to follow. When he returned to principalship position, he became my advocate to implement the Freshman Academy. It was a program well-grounded in research and a mirror of the National Association of Secondary School Principals breaking rank. He also became my advocate of the program that encourages high school seniors to enroll in the advanced placement program. Many of them are enjoying that partnership between the Department of Education and the University of Guam. These are just some of the examples of his commitment to the education of our youth, because from there on, JFK students were also able to enjoy those types of programs. So one may say, would Mr. Chargo's commitment to the education of our students change because of his political appointment to serve on the board? Definitely not. I know he will stand by his commitment to do what is best for the students of Guam. And I know that when push comes to shove, he is going to take the road that says, if the decision that you're making is for the best interest of the students, then do it. Don't let anyone do it for you. Just do it. And don't be influenced by whatever people or whoever wants to change his decision. I know Mr. Chargla for 35 years. Yes, he's very strong-minded, and there were times when we disagreed on certain matters. But at the end, his heart is always what is going to benefit the students in our educational system. I agreed to testify on his behalf tonight, knowing that when he assumes his new role as a policymaker, the students will be foremost in his mind and heart in that decision-making process. So tonight, Senators, I humbly ask for your endorsement for Ken to serve on the Guam Education Policy Board. Sizus Masi.
Thank you very much. I'd like to also recognize and welcome Senator Frank Uggan for joining us this evening. Okay. Mr. Ada.
Good evening, Senators, Madam Speaker, Senator Uggan, Senator Respicio, Senator Yamashita, and Senator Ada. Good afternoon. I would like to ask all of you if you would allow me to speak on both candidates, and I'll be able to finish it in 2.5 minutes. I had the opportunity to teach at GW with the nominee, Mr. Chargaloff, and I can honestly say to you, I had the best moments of my teaching career with this gentleman. I had the opportunity to witness his leadership as principal, and at the same time as an associate superintendent of education. Oftentimes, as Ms. San Nicolas had said, he would be called, and I too have called him many, many times on various issues, especially regarding the secondary schools. Mr. Chargalev comes with a wide variety of experience, know-how, and passion. The question was asked, what is he going to represent the administration, or is he going to become the mouthpiece, or that's how I interpret, of the governor? Mr. Chargalev is a man of himself. He speaks for himself, and oftentimes, his always one question is the child as a whole. One of the other things that I caught up with Mr. Chargalev was his involvement when I was speaking with him about dual enrollment in the school system, we at GCC and UOG. And he really touched me when he was really advocating that. That already takes about a minute and then 45 seconds. Let me go to the next individual, Miss Charlene Conception. The parent representative is so important. We need to hear. I can honestly say, way back in 1978, I was the first board member to sit as a parent-teacher organization president. One of the ironic things about Miss Conception, she has 5 of her children attending the Guam public school system. So I'm very sure she knows the ins and outs of her children and where they represent. I stand before you in the next 30 seconds to ask all of you for your support, and I fully support the nomination of Mr. Ken Chargalov and Ms. Charlene Concepcion to the Board of Education. Thank you. 2.5 minutes is over. Thank you.
You're welcome. I could have given you another 2.5 minutes when Charlene comes up. Miss Diego.
Madam Speaker, Senators Ed.D, Yamashita, Respicio, and Uggan. Good evening. My name is Elizabeth Polino Diego, a former educator with the Guam Public School System and currently an administrator with the Guam Community College. I can only speak of my professional experience with Kenneth Chargalov many years ago when he was first assigned at the school I spent 11 years at. Egotistical, unreasonable, and a slave driver were the most common descriptions I heard that summer prior to the start with him. I was disheartened because my school had lacked the kind of leadership necessary for many years, and I immediately concluded Ken was going to be another mediocre administrator with the usual controlling and authoritative style. As a consequence of this initial perception of him, I had decided I was going to be a minimalist, confining myself to the classroom and not volunteering for additional roles in the school. It took Ken 2 months to convince me otherwise. If I were to share all the experiences of what Ken has taught me as an educator, we would be here for a number of hours. It would have to suffice in this encapsulation of what I call the 3 Ps, of which has become the foundation of my leadership philosophy, to illustrate what I learned of the difference between management and leadership as I experienced it directly with Ken. Each serves as a very important developmental point for the other and requires the active practice of the other for you to be an effective leader. The first is personhood. Each of us is born with unique talents and abilities and the propensity to develop what we have been given. It is up to each of us to build ourselves to the greatest capacity, not for self-serving interests, but for the benefit of others. Initially, I learned much about Ken through my observations of him in his interactions with others. Ken was driven, concentrated his attention on improving the school physically, academically, and socially, and he did so with unsurpassed passion and energy. Ken had high expectations of himself, and he modeled this in so many aspects, and more importantly, was consistent in doing so. Some simple examples. He wanted us to look professional in our appearance and bring the respect to the profession by doing so. He modeled this. He expected us to be prompt to work, and he modeled this by being one of the earliest employees, arriving after the custodian responsible for unlocking the gate. Ken, moreover, was informed by the latest research and applied his education and training in his leadership role. He was industrious, so naturally he expected everyone else to be that way. He expected quality work and didn't settle for second best. He was a perfectionist, and it showed in ways such as an exceptionally clean and well-kept campus, to pointing out the slightest errors on a report. He was extremely adept at recognizing and utilizing the abilities for the benefit of the school. The second is purpose. Ken inherited an organization that didn't have direction, a staff with low morale, and a culture of apathy. Our school was perceived as the dumping ground and a stepchild in the school system. Most administrators in the past accepted the status quo and were unsuccessful in transforming the school to a level that it deserved to be. Ken provided the vision and a clear sense of direction, and ultimately,
people began to buy into the purpose of why our organization existed. He did so by having us focus on the primary task at hand, which was to examine the quality of the teaching and learning that took place within the walls of our school. You would be hard-pressed to ignore all the activity going on at the school. We began to have more conversations, professional development, and initiatives that encouraged us to focus on the greater purpose. You could feel the energy and the renewed sense of hope and excitement on campus. Cynicism began to fall away, and more people were coming out of the woodwork and participating in committees, volunteering to stay after school, and coming in during the weekends. The most interesting aspect of this was that Ken was collaborative and inclusive. The last of the P's is people. For a school, this was perhaps the best work that he did. People were intimidated by Ken first because of the horror stories that they had heard of him, irrespective of the accuracy of the information. It didn't take people long to conclude this was a gross misperception of him. Through his actions and behavior, Ken showed his heart was in the right place and that he cared about people. First, he cared about the students and the kind of education students were receiving. We learned to utilize research to inform us about the improvements that were necessary. He had us focusing on the teaching and learning and how great teaching would translate into great learning. He was out in the hallways on a regular basis talking with students, the staff, and he regularly visited classrooms and made his presence known. He invited and encouraged input from everyone and respected the institutional experience of individuals. He empowered others by giving them opportunities to innovate, experiment with ideas, and to assume leadership role. In the 2 short years at that school, Ken proved to be an exceptional leader and gained my utmost respect and admiration for the kind of leader he was. I can say this was the case with the vast majority of the former colleagues I worked with, whether they were custodians, fellow teachers, or school aides. I had the opportunity during my doctoral studies to analyze many models of leadership and their impact on organizations. I wrote about Ken in a number of my papers simply because he stood out as a leader. As I learned about formal names and terms associated with various leadership styles, I discovered that Ken had already been applying many of the qualities and practicing the kind of leadership styles organizations are in dire need of. In one of my papers, I wrote about those first descriptions of him as egotistical, unreasonable, and a slave driver. And in my reflection and exposure to leadership concepts, how those words took on a completely different meaning for me. I concluded that he is egotistical, but in the sense that he had uncompromising confidence that he was going to succeed in the task at hand and expected everyone within the organization to feel the same. He was unreasonable in the sense that he expected everyone to be on their toes and to put out full effort in providing quality education and the best support system for the students whom we served. And yes, he was a slave driver. He demanded you to put in the work required. Those who were lazy and mediocre in their performance suffered because he put fire underneath their feet. And it was quite obvious if you weren't a team player because he demanded this of everyone. No one escaped the high expectations he set for the organization. I was away from the island for almost a dozen years and recently came home. But while away, I still kept in touch and learned Ken remained the same. Schools he had been assigned to became achieving schools. I still hear the passion in his voice. He is still driven. He is still a slave driver. He still has the leadership skills and experience and energy that are needed to transform an organization. But more importantly, he has proven himself. I am elated about his appointment because there is still much work to be done, and I can't think of a better, more qualified individual. It is quite an honor to come before you for an individual for whom it was a privilege to work with. I hope my testimony will be considered in your confirmation of him as a member of the Education Board. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Sister Smasi. Madam Speaker, I think if I remember correctly, Elizabeth was the WASP coordinator when I was, was a member of the WASP team that visited in Rohan at that time. I think I remember Elizabeth Diego. But on behalf of myself, and I cannot take off my hat as chair of the Board of Education, I really stand here with, if you can separate that, then I want you to know that I really am speaking from the experience that I have, both as an educator, but more importantly, as a person really with policy background, okay? Thank you, Senator Agan, for being here, Senator Respicio, Madam Speaker, Senator Yamashita, and Senator Ada. I'm really very happy that you took the time really to come here. Your attributes of really being here actually then presents really the attribute that's most important, and really Ken exemplifies that. He gets involved. Okay, so the attribute of really involvement is most important. The attribute of assignment is really that when he gets assigned, he completes it. Okay, and that assignment is really, your assignment is really to make the decision in the end. And being assigned really doesn't mean you're just gonna, lay low and just say, well, we're just going to approve it. I hope that you use really your best judgment of really coming forward. But I do know that you can really make the best of that one. A very important notion that I have really, which is what I call is really the epitome of Ken. He challenges. And the word challenge is really most epitomized really when he challenged the accreditors of Inurahan, or is it Ontalan, Ken? Of Inurahan, that he disagreed with their judgment of the accreditation of Ontalan Middle School. And I think that's most important, okay? He challenges. And that to me is the epitome of really what he stands for. That he can challenge not only locally, but he can challenge actually both nationally too. And in the end though, I challenge him that in our position of policy, our challenge is really to unify, to collaborate, and to cooperate. Okay? We have a problem because sometimes, and sometimes I fall into that. It's what you call egotistical. People think that just because you're focused, you have an aim, egotistical. Well, I think, I wish some people would be more egotistical, but more importantly that you can see the results. It's really the accomplishment that's most important really on that, because you can be egotistical, but at the same time hard-headed and really, belong to the dogs. I'm sorry, okay? And in the end, the challenge is for him too, to work with all of us, okay? The most humbling experience I have as chairman, even as member of the board, is that we have a law that says 5 of us have got to agree. I've had the early experience where really to choose the superintendent, they needed 6, okay? And some of the people who were focusing only in the 5 forgot the 6th. And I was one of the 6 that refused to participate. And therefore, it actually just erased really that appointment. So the challenge, Ken, is really to really collaborate, cooperate, but actually more importantly to get the sensitivity that all of us are important. Everyone is important. People use the word stakeholders. Stakeholder really is very business oriented. All of us are holders of the future of Guam. And what more important than really the future of our children? Like Krista McCullough mentioned when she was going into the outer space, she says, I touch the future, I teach. So Ken, welcome to the future, and welcome to teaching the most highly challenging, if not really the most important profession in this organization called the Democratic United States of America. Thank you, Sister Smasi.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bruce. So before we let this panel go, any other comments or questions?
Thank you.
No? Thank you very much then.
Thank you.
They're dismissed, and I'll call, we have 2 more who's signed up. I have Darlene. Darlene, I don't know how to pronounce your last name. Stremalai, okay. And Debbie Canata. That's
$10 now.
No, 5, there's 10, that's 15 now. What we're talking about here is I charge our members when the senators, when they bring their cell phone and it interrupts, you see, the discussion. So he owes now us $15. So the public knows that. So. Okay, we're going to proceed. Then I have said, Darlene. Then you may proceed.
It's not on. Okay. Good evening, senators and everyone here. I can't remember. My name first is Darlene Stremlar, Darlene Deloso Stremlar, and I'm a teacher at Southern High School. I can't remember a time when Mr. Ken Chargaloff has not been a part of my educational life and my professional life. I graduated from Ocean View High School in 1990, so I've known him since 1986. I remember, I look like I'm 20, right? Okay, no. I remember like it was yesterday going to all the essay contests I could join. The sports activities always had 100 or more kids in attendance, but at the essay contest, the crowd usually consisted of my mom and dad, 3 or 4 contestants, the judges, and Mr. Ken Chargaloff. As a young student, you remember the people that inspired you to do more for yourself. He is one of those people. I'll never forget him following me to the parking lot after an essay contest. I thought to myself, why is the principal following me? The contest is over. But he came after me just to tell me that I did a great job, and he was going to let the whole school know how great I did. That meant so much to me, and to this day I make it a point always to find something true and great to say to my students on an individual basis, so that they understand just how unique they are to me and to the world. When it came to college, I attended the University of Guam with a bachelor's in secondary education with an emphasis in English. I had the opportunity to teach at JFK, GW, or Sanchez because there were plenty of openings at the time I graduated. I received a call at least a month before the opening of the new school year from Mr. Chargaloff, congratulating me and letting me know that he has not forgotten me and if I could go to Inarawan High School to teach English. It was a tough decision because I had my mind set on teaching at GW, so I could be far away from my house and my parents. Mr. Chargaloff convinced me to teach at Inarawan because he said that he would support me and be there for me and that I could always go to him for whatever reason. There were 2 other graduates from Ocean View that followed me. He told all of us the same thing. As a new teacher, I was struggling to learn the ropes because as all educators know, going to school to learn how to teach is something very different than actually having your own class to teach. I thought I was going to quit my first week of school, but Mr. Chargaloff kept his promise. He was there for me. He introduced me to people who I could learn from because he knew what I needed. The other teachers who started with me are also still thriving and teaching professionals. From that point on, I realized that I was not just one teacher trying to make a difference, but I was part of a team that could make a difference. What a gift Mr. Chargaloff gave to me. There he was again, further into my adult professional life, still making a difference, still inspiring me to do more. Even when we parted ways because Inarawan High School closed and Southern High was born, I was still in touch with Mr. Chargaloff and several times asked for his advice. I went ahead and got my master's in educational leadership from the University of Portland. He was one of the people that wrote me a recommendation letter. It wasn't just a recommendation letter, it was a testimony to who I was. I was a person who loved to teach and learn, and he understood this. He understood what it meant to support the students and to support the teachers, and he understood what it meant to ensure that everyone worked together. When he was principal of Inarawan High School, I saw what he did to make us work together. It wasn't leadership from the top down, it was leadership from the whole school. Even the janitors were part of the accreditation process. It was a remarkable time. He is a remarkable leader and a remarkable role model. I don't know what else is on his resume list, but I do know that this moment is not on his resume. Southern High was going through rough patches when it first opened, from all the rioting and kids adjusting to each other. I remember a riot broke out and Mr. Chargaloff was there on campus to help supervise. One student got so crazy, he was going to hit Mr. Chargaloff with a piece of wood. And Mr. Chargaloff looked at him and without yelling, he just said, "Boy, look at what you're doing. Put it down. Help me stop this. Help me stop someone from getting hurt." The boy stopped and things calmed down through the help of other school staff. If I recall correctly, the boy even apologized. I thought to myself, this is the kind of leader I want my kids to have on their side. this is the kind of person that I want to go to when I need help. I am now a parent of 2 beautiful children. I want there to be a leader who will cheer my kids on, who will be part of the governing body that makes policies that makes things better for my children. I want this person to represent me and to listen to me and my colleagues. We need someone who has worked with teachers and understands what it means to be a teacher. He has been around long enough to know that you don't stop learning and you don't stop sharing your talents and skills. I am so proud and honored to be here today and to say that I have been an educator for 16 years and I'm still in it because I have had great leaders in my life who inspired me to keep going because we love what we do and we love the people we do it for. To be able to call Mr. Ken Chargloff my principal, my boss, my mentor, and my friend is something so special because he is still going strong. Should we get someone on the Board of Education who has been there, who has been a part of all aspects of educational life, to work with the existing members and to share his knowledge, his talent, and to work for all of us. I think this for the sake of education in Guam, for the sake of our children, and for the sake of the teaching profession, he should be on the Board of Education. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Darlene. Debbie Kanata.
Good evening. I don't think after the testimony that has just been given and quite a few others given earlier, there's much I can add. I had a nice long speech prepared in my mind to present in support of Mr. Ken Chargloff, and then realizing who Charlene Conception was, I also had to state that I found that I am in the correct place. There is nothing more that I can add, but I would like to take this one opportunity, if you allow me, because I've never had the opportunity, to say, thank you, Ken. We too have a long history. Many people have thought that I have been a teacher and tell me I'm lying when I tell them I've never been a teacher. I am a mother of 6 children. My 3 eldest went through under the guidance of Mr. Ken Chargloff. 2 of my eldest children are educators and have make me very proud, as do my other kids. I came here today to testify and to give my support for the appointment of Mr. Ken Chargloff, and that is exactly what I'm going to do. I will save us a lot of time. Much has been said about the thought overzealous and sometimes quite arrogant man who brought forth and has contributed to the education of many of our youth. Apparently I am sitting to one right now, right next to one right now. I have one that calls me mom. I have several that call me mom. And I have to thank him for that. So I will do that. I will keep this simple. I would also like to state that I have known Mrs. Conception since before she was a mother, as a young woman. When she became a mother, her children were her priority. She was brought up well, has always been a lady and a woman of honor, and I think we would be lucky to have both her and Mr. Chargloff serving us on the board, because this is a service to our people, a great service. I think in this particular positioning, we require the best of the best, and we seem to be headed in that very direction. Pooling our resources of brilliant minds and talent to continue to promote forward a better system, improve and continue to build a system of education, which is our future. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
You're very welcome. Any comments or questions? Okay, thank you very much, ladies, for your testimony. I'd like to also add that we did receive other testimonies on Mr. Charglaff's behalf from Mr. Gregorio C. Sablon, the former president of the JFK PTSA, in support of his nomination, and also from Asher D. Duenas Rosette, also on behalf of Mr. Charglaff. Okay, thank you very much, ladies. So now the man of the hour. We're going to call Mr. Charglaff up.
Wow,
That's
quite amazing.
That's better than a eulogy.
So I need copies of those. Give it to whoever's going to do that. Madam Speaker and Committee Chair on Education, Dr. Judy Wampert, and Vice Chair Dr. Aline Yamashita, Senator Tony Ada, Senator Rory Respicio, and Senator Frank Blas. Frank Blas Agon Jr. Half of them, buenas noches. My name is Kenneth P. Charglaff, and I retired as an educator from the Guam Department of Education after 33 years of government service. In your packet, you will find a copy of my professional experience and work accomplishments throughout my career in the field of education. I appreciate this opportunity to have presented a very brief summary of my qualifications to the committee and to respond to your questions regarding my nomination as a public servant in the capacity as a member of the Guam Education Board. Additionally, I want to thank Governor Ed.D. for the honor and the privilege for his confidence in me to serve our Guam public school students in this capacity. With your gracious support for my confirmation, please know that I will carry out my official duties and responsibilities with the highest degree of integrity, conviction, commitment, and passion to public service and education once again. As you examine my professional vitae, it is humbling to bring with me to this position a clear understanding of the Guam Education Board's role in the grand scheme of the Guam Department of Education management, instructional, and policy development needed to achieve the department's vision of preparing students for life, promoting excellence, and providing support. Additionally, as a dad of 4 children who graduated from our Guam public school system and want to graduate next year, the clear issues of concern, as well as the issues to be celebrated by families, are inherently appreciated by myself. If confirmed, I am committed to work collaboratively with my colleagues in the board to develop policies and provide collaborative and stakeholder leadership that will improve student achievement and school improvement, including sound policies for student success in a safe and healthful school environment. In addition, I envision the Guam Department of Education becoming a standard-based and a professional learning community school system, complemented with a structure that values accountability to our core mission at all levels. Madam Chair, again, thank you, and I humbly ask for your favorable support and members of this legislative body of my confirmation, and I look forward to responding to any questions the members of this committee may have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Charglaff. I will disclose, of course, is that Mr. Charglaff and I go back a long ways, and not just as colleagues and as part of the old guard, but also with our families. So with that, I'm going to open the question or comments by our colleagues. I'll ask the Vice Chair if she has any.
much, Madam Chair. The old guard, but the best guard. Um, Ken, thank you for your willingness to put in the time. I think Dr. Cruz really said it best. You know, it's the time. We know that you'll put in the time. We know that you'll get the assignments done. Um, I agree with a lot of the descriptors that were shared about you tonight. But that really is what gets you getting the stuff done. I also know that when we need to tell you to stop and to be quiet, and when we do that, you do stop and you are quiet. So it's really a matter of knowing how to work with you. I have no doubt that your perspective will drive policy that would get our system to where it needs to get. Um, I ask that as you proceed, that you always remember that those of us who need an extra hand up, that is represented. Those of us with disabilities, we need help. We really need help. And I think that really goes to the teacher preparation part. And I also suggest that really also goes towards teacher evaluation and the professional development. We're exiting, Eric and I are exiting the system this year. And I'm happy to leave, and they're very happy to have me leave. And but there's a lot that needs to be done. So as you move forward, I hope that you ensure that all of us are included in what needs to happen so that we realize our potential. But I wish you the best. I thank you. You have my support. I think it's great that you had teachers speak. I've been getting text messages. What are the teachers thinking? Because we know that there are teachers, some teachers who really don't like you. We know that. And so it was really grand to have Dr. Diego and Ms. Janice, here as teachers to talk about how you really shifted and molded, and they have proceeded, and that to me is grand. You kept one from leaving the profession, and you motivated another to earn her doctorate. I just think that's grand, and so that for me is very telling. But thank you very much for your willingness to serve, and I look forward to voting on your confirmation. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you.
Senator Ada, questioner comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Chargaloff, thank you for accepting the governor's call to sit on the board. When you were saying your brief summary of I was looking over, and about the only thing you don't have in here is where you were baptized. But other than that, it's very impressive.
Thank you so much.
I look forward to voting on your confirmation. I know you got a lot of good, after 33 years as an educator, and you still want to put more time into the Department of Education says a lot. And thank you for the years of service that you put in, and the years of service that you want to continue to put into Department of Education to teach our kids and help our kids grow and be better so that our island can be better. And you have my full support and my vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Respicio?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've never heard those kinds of characteristics put out in a very positive light. I want to recognize Ms. Diego for your testimony and for making someone who is perceived as being egotistical, unreasonable, and a slave driver be someone who is exactly what the education system needs. And I think that's what the benefit of these confirmation hearings are all about, to give us an opportunity to get to know the nominee and to bring out those kinds of concerns that Senator Yamashita brought out about those people who may get those same opinions of the nominee, but may not be in a positive light. And so I asked the question of how the vetting process occurred in a positive kind of approach to ask whether or not the administrators had any input as to who they would like to see represent their interest on the Guam Education Policy Board. This makeup of the Guam Education Policy Board, as Dr. Cruz pointed out, is a dynamic in and of itself. It's probably the most hardest government of Guam board to serve on, I say, save for the Civil Service Commission. And of course, those other departments and agencies that have boards are also very difficult. But as I could see how hard the superintendent works and what he has inherited every single superintendent before him has inherited, it's just very fascinating because of the dynamic. And you mentioned something about GEB's role in the grand scheme of GDOE management. Does that mean that in your mind you've resolved the issue of policy versus operations? Because fundamentally the way the board is structured, because it's a Guam Education Board now versus when it was a Guam Education Policy Board, every time the Guam Education Policy Board tried to get involved in the day-to-day operations of DOE, which could be construed as getting involved in curriculum and instructions, but they always found a way to say, and I know you were on the other side where you've also found a way to tell the board, hey, that's operations, not policy, so stay out. And so it's fundamentally created that kind of environment where there's tension between the board members and the staff and management of the Guam of the education system. So in your mind, the Guam Education Board, have you resolved in your mind that the Guam Education Board can get involved in operations?
You know, I so happen to have a copy of the statute that governs the governance of the Guam Department of Education, and I read my role as a board member, and I read the role of the superintendent. The day-to-day operations and the activities belong to the superintendent, and my role is clear, and it's categorically listed in the statutory requirements in my job function and as a member of the board.
Like, for example, can the board get involved in personnel issues, grievance procedures?
No.
Can the board get involved in how federal grants are administered?
The board is involved in the federal grants.
To what?
In fact, we are the governing body.
Yeah, to what extent?
I'm not sure. I do not have that information, and I hate to provide information that I am not sure. But I know, according to statute, the Guam State Education Policy and Governing Board for Federal Programs, the board has governance over the federal programs.
But if the situation exists where the federal grants administrator has fiduciary responsibilities along with the superintendent has fiduciary responsibilities to USDOE, but as a board, their policy might differ from what those fiduciary responsibilities are, how would you reconcile that?
You know, in this case, I would like to consult with my other board colleagues, and of course, I will work closely with the superintendent and to brief me specifically on these areas. It is still unclear with me, but it will be something that I will be consulting with the superintendent and my board colleagues.
Could the board get involved in how these grants are awarded and to whom they're awarded to?
Again, you know, I do not have that information with me. I just need to consult with my board colleagues.
Me too. I'm just very quickly thinking in my mind, what are some kind of circumstances between the administration of the Guam Department of Education versus the role that each Guam Education Board member plays, and how, and I know the speaker as oversight chair of education has really taken the legislature down so many variations of the Guam Education Board to respond to what the needs of the system is. And
I know that based on my...
do you see any inherent flaws that we might have to correct legislatively through the speaker's leadership?
Well, you know, in my professional experience throughout my career, and I've been working very closely with with federal programs at the time when I was down at the district office and also as a school principal. One of the things that we did is, of course, we work very closely with the board because the district action plan belongs. That has to be approved by the board, and that's my understanding that that's the extent that the board has to review all the provisions noted in the district action plan, but in consultation with the superintendent and the school principals in many of these activities in the development of the district action plan. But I'm not too clear
exactly what is the role of the board, and that's where in terms of the federal programs. But this is where again I need to consult with my board colleagues and the superintendent on how do we best approach this specific issue that you are addressing to me.
How do you feel going into the Guam Education Board as a board member now versus when you were an administrator?
I'm sorry?
How do you feel going into the school system, public school system, as a potential board member versus when you were an administrator?
You know, as a board
what
member,
feelings come to mind?
you know, really, as a board member, I only have one focus, and that's students. Mission focus, I'm mission focused, I'm student focused, and when I go in there, that's where I'm going to provide and give my all when it benefits the students. So that will be my, you know, all the students are become the centerpiece of all my actions and decisions. And it does not matter what those issues are, as long as those things benefit our students, that is where my decision is going to be based on.
So if it means as taking a position as a board to release the allotment reserve so that DOE can make payroll or reconcile the issue of how much is yet owing to the Department of Education, I mean, you would now be in the capacity as a board member, you know, to advocate for those kinds of things, I imagine. So it's so what is it again? Egotistical, unreasonable slave driver.
And sometimes arrogant.
And I enjoyed when Senator Yamashita said some teachers just don't like you, and you were still kept a smile on your face. And I think that's my memory of you and how your persistence has meant that you've been a long time educator, and for 35 years you've been a part of the system that we know today. And it's an ever-changing system, and for better or for worse, we as a legislature and as a government have to continue to respond to that kind of structure. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think my time is up.
Thank you. Senator Ogden?
Madam Chair. Mr. Chargilov, Tata Mono?
Dr. Zobnia? Unalahan?
Okay. I just want to really, on a personal basis, thank you very much for extending yourself to the people of Guam, and most importantly for remaining in the educational arena. Some comments have been made about being futuristic in nature, taking care of the future, our children, and you've always been an educator at heart. I remember when I first came in back in 1997, and you were one of the school administrators presenting testimony during the budget process and being very actively involved in that entire process. So, I mean, that's the type of personality and the character that I believe we need on the board, so that in fact you can provide not only reinforcements to your colleagues on the board, but also reinforcements to the superintendent, because obviously the challenge is always there in providing the best educational environment and the safest educational environment for our children. So I thank you for extending yourself, and when you mentioned you were from Zonia, you already had my vote. Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Well, Ken, you don't have to worry about the fact that there are those who may not like you, because one of my master teachers told me you can't win them all. You're going in to teach, and it's not a popularity contest. And many times those who don't like you, it's because you are a slave driver, you are unreasonable, and you are egotistical. We all know that about you. But as Ms. Diego said, is that there's the positive side as well of these individual characteristics. Now, your personality, of course, is very strong. You know, as an educator, we all know that about you, and as an administrator. And I think that there might be, I mean, you're going to have to really work with yourself on the board, because it's designed to be a policy board. And I know I've been asked, and there's been a debate in the legislature every time to make it operational. But I still like to see it as a policy board, and then allow management, of course, of the superintendent to run the department, and hence, of course, the creation of the deputy superintendents that the superintendent can trust as, you know, as to be be part of his management team to run the school system. So I just ask that you continually, of course, put your character and your personality traits in check every time, because I know when you see some things being done, having come from the school system in all capacity as a teacher, I mean, as far up as, as even an acting, director and associate superintendent, you've played major management roles in the Department of Education. So, we just want to make sure that, you know exactly where to draw the line. The question that Senator Respicio brought up about federal programs, it is just that same question that actually caused a change in the board policy because of federal officials, because of the board wanting to meddle in federal programs, and word from DOE basically gave an ultimatum to not just the board, the governor, and the legislature in terms of how the board should operate as board members. So it is, and I'm glad that you would speak maybe with legal counsel, because there are certain parameters, of course, that board members should not venture into federal programs. I mean, the adoption of it as recommended maybe by the department, because there's certain federal grants that it's almost an automatic application for a multi-year or almost a guaranteed granting of those federal dollars. But in terms of the details of how it is to be used, how it is to be spent, and and how much is not necessarily that of the board. In your statement on the second page, if I may, just for a few seconds, is that you're committed, of course, to work with the board to develop policies and provide collaborative and stakeholder leadership that would improve student achievement and school improvement, including sound policies. Now, having, of course, been in the schools, are there any policies you think that the board need to consider to ensure then that ensure student success in a safe and a healthy school environment?
Well, regarding, first of all, student success, that's a broad definition, but again, the focus is on student achievement and school improvement. And when we talk about school improvement, we're talking about people improvement. In terms of sound policies for a healthful and a safe learning environment for the students, I know that there were statutes that have been passed regarding the bullying and other measures to help provide a more clear guidance on how we're going to help our students succeed in an environment where it's free of all kinds of student issues. I was still in the school system when the board developed several policies, such as the bullying policies and other policies to guide the school administrators and the school and provide a more safe learning environment for the students. And we created that. We worked very closely with the Division of Student Support Services, and so a lot of them have already been adopted to policies, and I would like to continue supporting those policies. And again, I'll be working very closely with the board colleagues and the superintendent and the student support services administrator to give us what are those areas that they need additional support from us as board members.
Okay, thank you. I know that when you touch something, you run with it and you carry it to the end. There is one, however, that you never did, and that is, and I want to know your position on principal performance contracts.
I meant, in several legislative sessions, I believe that I made a an oral testimony that I am a strong believer of the principal's performance contract. I'm a strong advocate, in fact.
Are there any others? Because I know that was brought up before.
Right.
Okay, well, is there any other last words from you then? Well, I think it's indicative that the members who are up here are in support of your nomination. We will go into session on the 10th, and that's when I was joking with you that the longer the testimony is, the harder it is for us to transcribe everything. So all of you who have provided testimony, please submit them so that then we won't have to try to transcribe what you wrote, and then it'll make it easier so we can send his nomination out to the floor. So Mr. Chargloff, we thank you, and I'm sure the department also would thank you for taking on, this task to serve on the board in your capacity as a retiree and continuously giving back to the community for free. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next, okay. The next individual that is here for also confirmation to serve on the Board of Education as well is Ms. Charlene D. Conception, and those who've signed up to testify for her, and I'll ask if you can come up, is Mary Mantonani, Jim Rages, Peter Ada, and Mary Gutierrez. I know Peter said that he was going to do a double testimony. So, and we'll make note of that, and we'll put, you're right, he did sign in. Okay, so Mary Mantonani, please. So just, you've seen us tell others earlier, don't bring it too close. You can bring it a little bit closer, but not right up to it because it really muffle your voice and we won't be able to hear you. When you turn on the mic, when you see the red light is on, state your name and indicate if you are in support or in opposition of the nominee. So
My
Mary.
name is Mary Matanani, and I am in full support of the nomination for Charlene. I don't think you can approve, and after everybody's testimony, it's like I'm ready to go to bed, but long night. But I just have a few words. I don't think you can approve a more dedicated parent to the Board of Education, and I don't know if they asked the PTA. I don't know if that's even relevant to ask the PTA members. I think if they wanted to voice their concerns, they should have put in a word to the governor. So, that's part of being involved. So I feel strongly that that might have been an issue, but maybe next time that can be considered with your recommendation. I'm more than sure that Charlene will be an asset to the board. She's the mother of 7 children. They've all attended public school system. So I can't say much about that because we all went to private school, so I never really used the public school system. But her children have gone to public schools, and they're all academically conscientious, and they're all athletically involved, and she and her husband, Jeff, make sure that they are. I think that the values that she has instilled in her children, she will instill in the board as a member or as a parent rep. If I get emotional with that, she's the granddaughter of my father, the late Senator Antonio Dueñas, and my mom. And I know that Charlene will work diligently to continue the Kaila tradition of serving the community. Our whole family has actually been of service. I retired as a public health nurse. My brother was in the military. My dad was a senator for many years. My mom was a very conscientious, parishioner of St. Jude. And Charlene has been raised under those umbrellas, so I think she'll do great, barring the PTA input. So testimony is just a short testimony to say that I am in support of her nomination, and I hope that you approve it. And if you don't, it's election year. We can vote too. No, that's not really a threat, but I'm just saying. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mary Mantanani. Yeah. Mrs. Gutierrez?
Good evening. Buenas noches. Speaker Wampat, Senator Yamashita, Senator Ada, Senator Respicio, and Senator Ogden. I hope Mr. Ada was here because he said he was the first parent rep on the board. Well, I was the third and the longest parent rep on the board, to the extent that I lobby for a parent rep to be on the board and a voting member, and then the law was changed. I'm here tonight. I don't know Charlene that much, but as a parent advocate, up to this very moment, I'm a great-grandmother, a grandmother, and a mother. I know that having 7 kids, she'll have a long way in education. And I, thank the superintendent for forming again the parent leadership, because I met Senator Yamashita one morning and I was sharing something with her. And I said, we missed that time when the parent organization and the Department of Education are a team. And I still have those books. And some of you look very young on that book when we have conferences, summits, symposium. So I know that Charlene is a young mother, and her role is to reach out to the PTOs. And and she'll know, because I will be behind her. Although I'm on the board, but I'm here as a private citizen, as a grandparent, a great-grandparent, and a mother. So I know that all of you there have been in education, have been involved in education. So give her your consideration, because I'm sure that she's going to represent the parents on the board. And I welcome her. And just like Mrs. Matanani, she was my classmate in elementary until today that she found out who I really am. But, the good part, and I thank all of you for putting a parent rep on the board, because education involves the parent. And we are going to bring back a strong parent involvement with Mrs. Concepcion. So thank you, si Jesus Marcy, and put favor considera sinapatlaan jeng confirma jeng mati ora jeng meeting am do. Si Jesus Marcy.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Gutierrez. Mr. Regis.
Thank you again, Madam Speaker and Senators. I don't know much about Mrs. Concepcion, but I've had an opportunity to work with her, and that opportunity had a big impression in terms of, again, the work that we put together for our children. When we met, she brought forward this demeanor of, what is the issue? Let's look at it, let's consider it, let's address it, and then what are the next steps that we need to take so we move forward in a positive manner, in a positive direction. She didn't dwell too much on what were the negatives and always looked at the positives, and that was really one of the things that has made an impression on me about her as a parent. And so when I found out that she was being appointed as a board member, I said, wow, this is a perfect opportunity for me to share a bit, granted, a small opportunity of working with her. And so, of course, I'm sitting here before you in full support of her appointment, and I'm hoping that in turn you will approve her appointment to the board. I think this would be a great time to have her representing and speaking probably on behalf of all the parents and our children, of course. So thank you for this opportunity.
like to also, for the record, state that testimonies also were sent in on Ms. Conception's behalf by Rachel Flores from Atticao Elementary School, from Veronica M. Regis, Captain, GUANG, Guam Commander, also on her behalf. Uloyo Sean Gamatauto, Managing Partner of GET Consulting Equipment. Former Governor of Guam, Felix Camacho. Former Senator Frank Blas. Oh no, I'm sorry. This one is Frank S. Blas. Okay, so on his behalf and on your behalf, and Carl Pangilinan, the General Manager of the Guam Visitors Bureau. I want to thank you very much for your testimonies. And we would like to call up now Ms. Conception. No, too far. I can bring you a bit closer.
Okay.
We want to hear you.
Okay, thank you. Hafaday, good evening, Madam Speaker, Senator Ugin, Senator Respicio, Senator Yamashita, and Senator Ada. Thank you for this opportunity. I am very, very grateful for Governor Calvo appointing me to the position as a parent representative of the Guam Education Board. There's no greater calling than to serve your island in whatever capacity it may be. I've had over 21 years of government service, 11 of which were right here in this legislature. I moved on to the executive branch. I've been able to work with former Governor Camacho, and most recently I was over at GITA for a couple of years. I then decided to leave government service to pursue my military career, and so I've been there for the last year or so. And with all that experience, I bring that to the table. Yes, I do have 7 kids. That's not my only qualification to be a part of this board. I believe, as a parent, education starts at home. And that's one of the several things that I try and instill in my children. You always have to you always have to get an education. You can't just stop at high school. You have to move on. You have to go to college. You have to get your degree. It's just so important. And again, that's something that I want my kids to see. And again, with public service, community service, I've done that. And again, I'm trying to show my kids that this is what we need to do. The community service that I've done, I've volunteered for the Island Girl, the Power Girl, up in Dedido. That was something that was really catered to girls that are at risk, and being a part of that, you try and talk to girls, try and tell them about, again, how important education is, how important their life is. When things go wrong, you can't just focus on the bad. You have to move forward. You have to press ahead. And coming from a military background now, I'm very mission-oriented. Mission's always going to come first, but how are we going to accomplish that? We are going to look at all aspects of everyone involved. Again, all the stakeholders. I'm accountable to, first and foremost, to the children. I'm accountable to you if you confirm me. I'm accountable to the governor because he appointed me. But it's everyone. We're all accountable to them. And that's something that I want to bring to the board as a parent representative, bridge the gap between the PTA and the school and the board. I found it very difficult as my kids, since elementary and now in high school. Some of the things that, it was so hard to understand. What are these policies that are being passed by the board? How is it affecting my child? Some of that information doesn't get passed down to the parents. It just stops at the school level. And, I try and get a better understanding of what's going on, but if I don't ask, then that information doesn't get passed down. I have to read about it in the paper. And again, that's just something that I really want to work on. board members and all the stakeholders involved to accomplish what we need to for the children. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's open to my colleagues. Any questions or comments? Senator Yamashita.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Charlene, thank you. Thank you for your willingness to serve. I remember the first time I met you. You may not remember this, but
And Speaker in Pico's
Speaker in
office.
Pico's office, and her little girl was at this high, got gum in her hair. And her little girl with the gum in her hair took her scissors and just cut it off.
Cut it herself.
The mom was just like, "What are you doing?" But I remember that, and because you were working and you were taking care of your kids all at the same time, and certainly then since then and up to now, I've gotten to know you in different capacities. But thank you for your willingness to serve. I do appreciate the notion that we need to better our communication and our collaboration with our families. I do appreciate the notion that policies need to be friendly and accessible and understood by all of us. And I do appreciate the idea that sometimes out of compliance gets so muddled up that we forget about the kid. And particularly in special ed, I have a real problem that we do all of this work so we can be in compliance, and we forget that the kid has a soul, and that's just forgotten, right? So I applaud you, and I thank you, and then you are so right. Your financial aspect, will help everybody talk about what are the priorities, what are the policies, and what is the best fit for all of that. So I thank you. I wish you the best. And the way you're raising your kids is holistic, and that's what we need in our schools.
Thank you.
They're going to school. They're also in sports. They're going to school. They're with their grandmother and their great grandmother every Sunday. When somebody is sick, they take care, and those are the values, right? That's what we want. And
Yes.
so I trust that your policy work will reflect those pillars and those values. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Charlene, for stepping up to the plate and answering the governor's call to serve on the board. Wow, all these years of service to the government, the years that you're putting in at the Air Guard, the years as a mother, and then now you want to be on the board. That is so admirable, and I'd like to thank you for still wanting to serve back into the government, but in a different capacity, and ensuring that again, all of our children are well educated, well informed. The parents are well informed, and that bridging that gap with the communication. And I think that's where the military discipline comes in, because you always want to ensure that that chain of command or that information is always free flowing both up and down, so that everyone stays informed. And a well-informed soldier or a well-informed airman is a trooper. They take their orders and they try to drive on and charge on. So you have my full support. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you for the service to our country,
Thank
and
you.
as a veteran, and thank you for our service to the government. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I also want to thank you for your service to our country and serving our community in a position that you've coined very appropriately, that it's the highest, how did you say, it's the highest form of
Greater calling.
the highest form of public service is actual public service. And so, these are very different times, and you pointed out that parents need to know what those policies are. And we're seeing the leadership at the Department of Education move into social media, giving announcements through Facebook and through emails. I don't know if you're on Twitter yet. I have a Twitter account, but that's a younger generation. The kids are on Facebook, but they moved to Twitter because the parents are on Facebook, and and so it just means that we just have to keep following where our children are going. And these are very different times, because as parents we have to deal with cyberbullying and sexting. I remember speaking to fourth grade class not too long ago, and I asked how many of you know how to use a cell phone, and so many hands went up. and we see 7, 8-year-olds with iPads and tablets, and those that can have access to those things, in the Department of Education giving laptop computers to students. And so with the technology that it presents itself as opportunities for additional learning, it also presents parents and the administration with opportunities for how they can be exposed to things that we don't want our children to be exposed to. And so you certainly bring that perspective to the board. I appreciate you pointing out the Guam Teacher Parent Association and how you would reach out to them and be their voice, because I think ultimately that was the spirit of the law. I know the law is not set up like how it's set up for judges and justices, and how they have to go through this vetting process where they're recommended by the Guam Bar. And also, I believe it's the case for the Board of Trustees for the University of Guam. Even with our representatives on the Guam Election Commission, between both parties, we have to submit a list of names that the governor ultimately gets to decide who he picks. But the people that are involved in those systems, those voices were taken into consideration. And I know that your mission will be to reach out to those parents and say, I'm your voice on the Guam Education Board. And as parents, we have to learn these new technologies. Like, I see the superintendent on Facebook, and it's refreshing to hear how his day has been in all the schools that he's been going into. And so thank you for your service, and certainly you have my support.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Sorry, I'm not from Jordan, but my son did play for Jordan for a couple.
But I do have my biases. Well, Charlene, I think you, first of all, said everything correctly. First and foremost, a mother of 7 individuals, wonderful children that have grown up with you, and I think that already says enough in terms of representing the parents. But you also mentioned community service. You mentioned accountability for the children, and education begins at home. But in terms of looking at your total presentation here, I want to just focus on your community and your civic involvement, because it tells the story about yourself in terms of reaching out even further to the community. When you're the team mom, the coach and the team mom for Crushers soccer team,
yes,
that speaks highly for itself. Habitat for Humanity as a volunteer, reaching out and helping those who need a hand up rather than a handout. Island Girl Power volunteer, GPSS at that time, Adopt a School volunteer, and then Cobra's baseball team. Just reaching out and being able to support children other than yourself in their social development, I think speaks very highly about your character. But then I do ultimately have my biases in terms of rendering my support, and that's exactly where you're employed at the moment. Not only have I seen you work over the course of the last few years and contribute to the National Guard, but most importantly, it's the mission orientation that you have, being able to ensure that the mission is accomplished, but people always keeping that in mind. And I commend you for that, and for the redirection of your career at this point in time. I wish you the best of luck, and you, obviously by virtue of your membership in the National Guard, do have my support. Thank you, Charlene, for offering yourself to our people. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Or something else. Don't back away.
No, just tell them your family's from Sinahanya. Sinahanya rules. Yeah, the Kaila family from Sinahanya. Anyways, Harleen, thank you very much. Going through, of course, your documents that you've submitted in, and I know you said this earlier, that that's not the only thing that qualifies you, but actually it is the most important thing, the mother of 7, because you are being placed in there as the mother representative, the parent representative. So that is your most important job. But when I was reading this, of course, I want to ask you if you're going to change your mind, because gosh, you're so busy. All the things you're doing in the community, serving in the Guard, definitely that's going to take up a lot of your time, and 7 children. So when are you going to have time for yourself?
Well, it's just all about time management. I have a great husband who supports all of that, and he's always there for the kids. And when you have an even balance, there's
do know that this is for 3 years. So
Yes, ma'am.
you'll be able to do it for 3 years then.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, you've said it all. And I love for your statement about public service. It is the greatest calling, and we appreciate that. And I want to thank you for willing to serve in this capacity and to give back. And I know it's to guide your children as well, and all of the children of Guam. So I commend you for that. Always putting them first and foremost, in whatever you do in the board. So. With that, I'd like to thank you very much again for volunteering to do this, to serve on the board. And usually I leave the testimonies open for 10 days, but I won't be able to do that because we are going into session on the 10th. But if there's anybody out in the community who would like to provide additional testimonies, you can send them to my office, drop it off here, email us at fbtorres at judy1pat.com, fax it to us at 472-3589, or just come on by and drop it off. So with that, I want to thank you again very much for being here.
Okay. Thank you.
And your
Thank you very
family
much.
for here to support you. The other appointment is for Miss Gina Ramos to serve as a member of the Guam Community College Board of Trustees. And I have who signed up to testify on your behalf is Miss Deborah Ballinger and Dr. Mary Okada. I have Dr. Okada, President Okada, and the chairperson of the Board of Trustees, Deborah Ballinger. So, Miss Ballinger is the chairman of the board.
Hafaday, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, Senator Atta, Senator Respicio, and Senator Blas. I'm sorry, again, second, 2 times. There's a reason. As the current chairperson of the Guam Community College Board of Trustees, I respectfully submit this letter of support for the reappointment of Ms. Gina Ramos to the GCC Board of Trustees for another 5-year period. Ms. Ramos has served on the GCC Board of Trustees for the past 9 years. For 5 years of those years, she served as the chairperson. Throughout her tenure, Ms. Ramos has always been fully supportive of the mission of the college. She has been mindful of the board's role to set policy for the college and has willingly attended the training requirements of board members for accreditation purposes. As an ex-officio member of the GCC Foundation Board of Governors, Ms. Ramos is also an advocate for GCC in the community. As well, her professional status within Guam's healthcare industry has allowed GCC to formulate valuable business partnerships that benefit the college in general and our students, faculty, and graduates in particular. As such,
Her role as the member of the Board of Trustees is invaluable. I thank you in advance for allowing her to continue to provide that support for the Guam Community College and its mission as a leader in career and technical workforce development, providing the highest quality, student-centered education and job training for Micronesia. Thank you for the opportunity to submit this testimony on behalf of Ms. Ramos. I also just want to add that I do know Gina personally. We went to school together, and we graduated together, and she was the top 3 in her class. Gina's very smart. She's diligent. She's thorough, which is what we need, and she's ethical. So I just want to throw in my support for her reappointment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Okada.
Hafade and good evening, Madam Speaker. Senator Yamashita, Senator Ada, Senator Uggan, and Senator Respicio. Thank you for this opportunity to provide testimony this evening. On behalf of the Guam Community College, I submit testimony in full support of the reappointment of Ms. Gina Ramos to the Guam Community College Board of Trustees. Having served with Ms. Ramos since 2005, in my role as the Vice President of Business Finance and now as the President and CEO, I have seen how her expertise and tenure as a GCC trustee have greatly benefited the college. Ms. Ramos was instrumental in the college's reaffirmation of accreditation, its aggressive capital improvement projects, and has provided continuing guidance to support the board. Ms. Ramos will serve as a valuable member as the board continues to focus its efforts on upgrading our facilities and increasing program offerings. Recently, the college completed its institutional strategic master plan that will take us from 2014 to 2020. In the plan, we identify key initiatives that will help us foster relationships that we are able to effectively educate and train our students to take advantage of the direct and indirect opportunities Guam military buildup will bring to our community. While we aggressively prepare for the dynamic changes that will occur on Guam, we need Ms. Ramos's continued service on our board to provide the continuity to move GCC forward. In addition to Ms. Ramos's wealth of knowledge, she has demonstrated not only to her fellow board members, but also to faculty, staff, and administrators that she is an effective leader engaging in productive dialogue and activities at the college. I fully support Ms. Ramos's reappointment to the Guam Community College Board of Trustees. And just to share another note, when the board travels off into state conferences that involve and participation for trustees, one of the comments that Ms. Ramos always says, "Are you the student member to the board?" And so several times she's been the chair. Our board is a very young board compared to many boards across the United States that serve community colleges. And it's with that continuity and support that we ask for additional reappointment of Ms. Ramos to keep the continuity to continue through the accreditation cycles as well. That will greatly benefit the college. So thank you again for your attention and your commitment to the Guam Community College. Sidusmasi.
Thank you very much, Dr. Okada. So, Ms. Ramos.
Hafade, good evening, Madam Speaker, Senator Yamashita, Senator Ada, Senator Respicio, and Senator Uggan. Thank you for this opportunity to provide testimony in support of my reappointment to the Guam Community College Board of Trustees. It has indeed been a pleasure and a privilege to serve on the GCC Board of Trustees for the last 8, I guess 9. See, she's the finance person, so she knows. Years, and as chairman of the board for 5 of those 8 or 9 years. In those years, I have seen firsthand the efforts the college has made to be the leader in career and technical workforce development and job training in Micronesia, and I hope to continue to help the Guam Community College fulfill its mission through my efforts as a member of the Board of Trustees. When I first joined the GCC Board of Trustees in September of 2005, the theme for the 2004-2005 annual report was Evolve. This was a prescient theme because Evolve is exactly what GCC has done during my time on the Board of Trustees. One of the first major tasks that I, along with other members of the GCC Board of Trustees, faced back in 2007 was a sort of changing of
search for a new president. A daunting task for any board to undertake, but a task that served as a catalyst for GCC. With the selection of Dr. Mary Okada as president of GCC, an evolution of sorts began for the Guam Community College. In the last 8 years, with the support of the Board of Trustees, President Okada and her team at Guam Community College has achieved much, not just in terms of infrastructure and enrollment, but also in program offerings, community outreach, governance. The college has achieved record levels of enrollment, constructed 3 new buildings, and is currently renovating several existing buildings, has added new programs, has successfully renegotiated the union contract thanks to the help of Board Trustee Bellinger, and has now come to the end, as Dr. Okada mentioned, of its 2009-2014 institutional strategic master plan. As President Okada mentioned in her message in the 2012-2013 annual report, the college has successfully closed the loop with regard to the IMSP's key initiative of pioneering, educational excellence, community interaction, and dedicated planning. As a member of the Board of Trustees these past several years, I have experienced the process of reaffirmation of accreditation twice. And both times, the college successfully achieved reaffirmation of its accreditation. In fact, the performance of the GCC Board of Trustees went from being an area needing improvement, a recommendation in 2006, to a commendation by the accreditation team of 2012. The commendations that the Board of Trustees received from the 2012 accreditation team is a testament to the stability and support that the BOT has provided to President Okada and the college community, enabling them to focus on achieving their mission. I hope to be part of the Board of Trustees that will help President Okada and the team at Guam Community College develop the next institutional strategic master plan. These past 8 years on the board has provided me with the institutional knowledge and experience that form a foundation for my decision and discussions at the board level. As a member of the local business community, and because of my work experience in the hospitality and healthcare industries, I bring a specific business perspective to the Board of Trustees that I hope will help continue to move the college's initiative forward in the next few years and to help it continue to evolve. Last but not least, as I have mentioned in previous confirmation hearings, I would like to continue my work as a member of the Guam Community College Board of Trustees because although I'm not an educator by training, I have a very strong personal commitment to education. My father always used to tell me when he passed away he would not be able to leave me monetary inheritance, but he would leave me with the education he provided to me. He said that no one would ever be able to take my education away and that my education would open many doors for me. So by helping the Guam Community College fulfill its mission, I hope to provide my fellow residents of Guam the educational opportunities that will open doors for them. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that testimony. Colleagues, Senator Yamashita.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What an honor. This is Chalam Magahaga right here.
Can you just stay, by the way, provide testimony?
Truly, what an honor. Dr. Okada, as always, thank you. Thank you so much. Your leadership, Madam Chair, Gina, just to hear you all, you're so articulate, you're so clear in what you're doing, where you came from, where you are now, and where you want to go. So thank you for your willingness to continue to serve. Certainly, Guam Community College plays a very critical, vital role in our community. So I thank you. I also want to say that as we continue, and I already know that you do open your doors for those of us with disabilities, and Dr. Okada and I have had a very brief communication exchange, and so I thank you for that. And I hope that we continue to open those doors and that we help everybody learn how to realize their potential and stuff. But thank you for accepting us, because I know we don't have any rights there, but I have talked for
Chair. Thank you, Ms. Ramos, for your willingness to continue your service on the GCC Board of Trustees and the support that you give to Madam President in achieving the goals that not only Madam President seeks to achieve, but also the Board of Trustees in furthering and expanding the GCC community to all and what they want to see in their future education or in towards higher education. I think that it is just I think it's a transformation just in the past couple of years that GCC has went through, and I hope that you guys will continue to support Madam President, and that Madam President will continue to perform for the not only the Board of Trustees but for the people of Guam, and an outstanding institution that is I think hasn't even met its goals of reaching for the stars. And thank you for all that all of you do for on the Board of Trustees, and you too, Madam President. Thank you. You have my full support in my vote.
Senator.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Congratulations and thank you. And thank you to the leadership at GCC and the support that the Board of Trustees gives the very capable president. I mean, every time we hear of what GCC is doing, it just keeps getting better and better. Not only do we have evidence and see all the progress at the Guam Community College, the community is actually seeing it and benefiting from it. So thank you for agreeing to be reappointed to the board. Thank you. You have my support.
I'm trying to find where the affiliation would be.
I'm from Dedido.
Well, my youngest daughter did graduate from academy after going to a public school, so there's that tie-in. But I just want to, Madam Speaker, just for clarification purposes, because obviously the appointment is, thank you for serving 8 years, 9 years, but the appointment is for a 5-year term. And looking at the documents, it says the first page has November 11, 2010 to November 10, 2015. And then the second page has November 11, 2010, same timeline. So I think that, Madam Speaker, perhaps your committee may have to review that and make sure that, in fact, we're appointing her for the length of time that she is here for.
I did see that too on the letter, so I had not yet been able to clarify that particular point. So.
Yeah, we just need to get that clarified before session date, which is scheduled possibly for sometime next week. Another thing, Ms. Ramos, you mentioned is the Guam Community College, through the leadership of the Board of Trustees and President Okada, has evolved over the years. And part of that evolution and chairing the Committee of Veterans Activities, Veterans Affairs, certainly shows that, in fact, the Guam Community College has certainly evolved because of the recent recognition of being best of the best by one of the national magazines, veteran magazines. And that's reflective of taking care of our veterans and looking out for our veterans, and also taking the initiative and working with the Guam National Guard in assisting the 287 who are unemployed, and hopefully providing them that necessary training and then transitioning back into an employment status. So I certainly extend my kudos to the Guam Community College leadership, inclusive of yourself as a member of the Board of Trustees, and certainly look forward to better days ahead. But thank you for not only looking out for our veterans, but also reinserting Guam Community College as a community partner. And that was reflective today when you, in fact, the college hosted the No More Say No to Sexual Assault and Family Violence. That particular gathering this morning is reflective of a lot of the community activities that the Guam Community College has opened its doors to in terms of supporting our community at large. So I extend kudos and congratulations. And Ms. Ramos, yes, as a graduate of Academy, my daughter will never forgive me. So you do have my support. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you.
I think you'd be happy to know also is that Ms. Ramos was a member of the Guam Chamber of Commerce Armed Forces Subcommittee and a member of the Navy League chapter of Guam.
Oh, and if I may add, my sister, Kristen Ramos, Captain Kristen Ramos, is the first female to be promoted to leader of her own company in a combat zone. So I do have that
wow,
connection.
Very good. Surely.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. You've been here, done that, and you know the ropes, you did exactly what it is that we were expecting to hear in terms of you serving on the board and what you've done, in collaboration, of course, of your chair and even you as a former chair, and your support for the president of the college. So we want to thank you very much again for willing to do additional years when we have to clarify this to continue to serve then on the board.
It would be my pleasure.
Thank you. And thank you very much, Dr. Akada, as well, and Mrs. Ballinger for coming this evening. So you want to sit and testify now on the Chalan Magahaga, since you're all, women, strong women? Magahaga, yeah. Yes, we need to. So thank you, ladies. Yeah. The last thing on the agenda is the public hearing for bill number 266-32, and that was introduced by myself, Senator Munya Barnes, and Senator Yamashita, the three women. And if you hear why that is so, primarily because this bill in itself is relative to the renaming of the Tijan Parkway to Chalan Magahaga. And just brief history, so to speak, is that the Chamorro women have always held powerful roles in their families and in our society. The most powerful woman in ancient Chamorro society was the Magahaga, or firstborn daughter of the highest ranking person in a clan. Clans were governed equally by a Magahaga and a Magalahi, the firstborn son. When decisions were made, the Magahaga always had the final say. Unfortunately, this power was not respected by Europeans who wrote the first accounts of Chamorro history and purposely left out the names of women. They were critical of the roles women played in ancient Chamorro society, noting that women held power reserved for men in the rest of the world. Although Chamorro women are largely unnamed throughout written history, the sacrifices they made to keep the culture alive have not gone unnoticed. Since Chamorro culture is matrilineal and family lines are traced through mothers, many scholars attribute the survival of the culture to women. People's identity and place in society were determined by who their mothers were. Thus, women shaped the destiny of their children and ultimately the destiny of future generations of Chamorros. They also educated younger Chamorros about their genealogy, ensuring that they would always understand their connections to those around them, to their land, and to the history of their clan. Just as Tijan is at the center of the island, the Magahaga is a central figure in our society. They carry life in their wombs, nurture their children, and lead their families on our island with respect and dignity. Naming the Tijan Parkway in honor of our island's powerful women gives tribute to the important roles women have assumed throughout Guam's history and the important contributions they continue to make today. So the Magahagas who are here before us, do you affirm your testimony then in support of Bill 266? Yes, an indication of thumbs up, 3 thumbs up. I want to thank you very much for your support, show of support. So this concludes then the public hearing for the confirmation of Mr. Ken Chargloff to serve as the member of the Guam Education Board as the retired school administrative representative, the appointment of Ms. Charlene D. Concepcion as a member of the Guam Education Board parent representative, the appointment of Ms. Gina Y. Ramos to serve as a member of the Guam Community College Board of Trustees, and the hearing of Bill number 266-32, which is relative to the renaming of the Tijan Parkway to Chalan Magahaga. So this concludes then the public hearing. It is 7:45 on April 1st, 2014. Thank you very much.